Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Coaching with Steph J. I am Stephen, Stephanos, as my wife calls me, my family calls me. Um, I go by Steph, and my wife Jay. Well, she won't be assisting me today, um, but nevertheless, I'm gonna bring you guys some relationship coaching to help transform your relationships, your marriage. And so today I want to talk about mindset and why mindset is important, like when you're doing anything. Um, you can do, like, you can start to do anything, right? But if you don't do it with the right mindset, it's not going to last. You're not going to get the results that you want. I want to say, once you do something with the right mindset, it's going to last. You're going to get results. My wife and I have been married for 20 years. We celebrated 20 years of marriage last year. Hooray for us. So, um, marriage now is more important to us than it was 20 years ago because I now understand, right, the importance of mindset. And today I want to talk about marriage mindset, the married mindset. And so, um, the married mindset is quite different than your like dating mindset. It's different than your relationship mindset. And so, one of the keys again to the success of our marriage is that we came in with the right mindset, and our mindset began when we said like "I do." The reason why um, marriage mindset is so important is because it governs all the other aspects of your marriage. Married mindset, especially for like we got married young. I was 22, my wife was 20. And so we hadn't developed yet. Like at 22, 20, you're not you haven't discovered like the best version of yourself, right? You haven't developed different skills and different characteristics yet. You haven't developed like the ways to communicate. You haven't developed and processed like finances yet. You haven't really developed like physically, especially as a man. Like men, we don't necessarily come into like, well, let's say like puberty. We don't finish puberty until like 20, 25 years old. You can see like I'm still going through puberty, but um for most people at 20, 22, 19, 20, 22, 23, they say the human brain doesn't develop fully until 25, 26, 27 years old. So there was a lot of development that we had to do as far as personally, mentally, physically, emotionally. But because we came into our marriage with the right mindset, we've been able to sustain having a loving, a fun, enjoyable, a adventurous marriage. And I don't mean adventurous in a way where we inviting people in, adventure into like no, not talking about that type of adventure. I mean, you know what type of adventures I mean, where like we just love spending time with each other and having fun. We consistently have a weekly date night, whether it's outside or inside. My wife is adverse to like the weather conditions because we live in Chicago, right? And so oftentimes when she doesn't feel like going out, we Netflix and chill, right? And so even with the responsibilities of life, I'm a business owner. I'm also a content creator. Um, and so I'm also a pastor. We have a coaching business, which is like what you're getting. I want to call this free community content, right? This is our free community content. And so There's so many things that we have as far as responsibilities. We have two kids, our daughter who's 18, my son is 6. And so, not to mention like family, friends, things of that nature. We take pride in taking care of our health. And so like all those things like have to be taken into consideration, and having the right mindset matters. I know people who got married, they did the right thing, but didn't have the right mindset. And their marriage only lasted 5 years, 6 years. I know some people who were married 15 years, and all of a sudden they called it quits. And I'm done with this, right? And so having the right mindset helps you to sustain lasting success. Uh, and so, with that said, let's dive into let's talk about the married mindset. So, what is the married mindset? And I want to say I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. There are some things I'm going to talk about that the Bible says about marriage. If you don't believe in the Bible, this may not be for you. Or like, I'm not trying to get you to subscribe to Christianity. Christianity to me is not a religion; it's a way of life, and it's actually the the Bible is a blueprint for how life is to be lived. And so I don't think the Bible is a religious book. Um, and so there's some going to be some things that I talk about that are in the Bible. And again, I'm not trying to persuade you, or I'm not trying to convince you. Now, if I persuade you to try these things out and try it the Bible's way, then so be it. But if not, chew out, as they say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. So, with that said, the married mindset starts with what the Bible says about marriage. It says, I believe in Genesis, the third chapter, is somewhere in the first, between the first and the 10 verses. After God made man, Adam, after God made Eve, Adam saw Eve and he said, "For this cause shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave or chase his wife." And so what that means is what Adam was basically saying, okay, now in that context, Adam and Eve was created by God, right? They had no mother or father. Let's say physically, but God was their creator. They didn't know God as a father yet. God was their creator. And so God put two people, right, together. And Adam said, God didn't say, "Hey, y'all married." Adam said, "Okay, this is going to be my wife for this reason, a man and a woman." This shows you the intelligence of man when they were created. So don't let people tell you that. I'll get into that mindset too, but don't let people tell you that human beings are a higher form of animals. God created. I don't subscribe to evolution because evolution says that anything left to itself tends to evolve or get better. That's not true. If I leave some food here on the table, I have a table here. So if I leave some food on the table, it's not going to evolve and turn into a frog. It's not going to evolve and turn into amoeba. It's actually going to grow mold, right? And if I eat it, or if someone comes and eat it, it's going to cause them to get sick. So that's decay. Things getting worse, not evolving to get better. Um, Similarly, like if you don't cut your grass, it doesn't move toward getting better. It moves towards uh, actual chaos, right? And so um, it shows you like the intelligence of man. Of God created man. He created man as his create as a human creator. So God created creation. He created the sun, the moon, the stars. God created creatures, the animals, the birds, the bees, so on and so forth. Then he created creators, right? God said, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness," which is Genesis chapter, somewhere Genesis chapter 2. You can read the account for yourself in Genesis chapter 2. God said, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness." And so God created us to be a representative of who He is physically. God is a spirit. We can't see God. Um, but we know that, right, that there is a spiritual realm, things that we can't see. Why? Because words are spirit. You can't see my words, but yet my words can affect you in more ways than I can physically affect you. Okay, so that proves that there is a spiritual realm, right, to the world. So God is spirit. He created with his words, he created the world, and then he made man with his hands, right? And he breathed into man his spirit, and man became a living being. So we are living beings with intellect. We are able to have thought and ideas. We are able to contemplate. We're able to use words to shape our world. Animals cannot do that. Animals do have some form of communication, but they cannot create their world with their words, but we can. And so Adam says um, that a man should leave his mother and father, claim his wife. So he says, this is the first thing. He says, my relationship with Eve is the highest form of a human relationship I can have. In summary, he says that. So beside outside, higher than mom, higher than dad, higher than sister, higher than brother, higher than cousin, higher than friend. His mindset was, my relationship with Eve is the highest relationship I can have as my wife. As my wife, it's the highest relationship I can have. For some people, their wife, their wife isn't the highest relationship they can have. Their mom is the highest relationship they can have, or their dad is the highest relationship that they can have. And it oftentimes shows in like priority and how they handle the relationship with their wife versus their mother. If their mother calls, they drop everything and on a dime. If the wife calls, if they would tell their mom or their dad, right, um, more intimate things or more personal things than they would their wife. I know some people that would tell their guys who they say that's my dog, that's my best friend since grade school. They'll tell their best friend more important things than they tell their wife. They'll tell their best friends like the thing that they're thinking in their head, right, before they tell their wife. There's there's conversations I have best friends. I have a couple like long term. I have a couple very long term friends who I would consider like best friends. Then I have like long term friends who just like we are like brothers, right? And then I have like my brother, of course, my mom, my parents, my sisters, right? But then I have like people that like are associates of mine that I see in common, like common. We have things in common, and we oftentimes see each other like at the same space. So that makes us like associates, right? But out of those relationships, there is nothing that I would say to them that I wouldn't say to my wife. There's nothing that we joke about that I wouldn't joke about with my wife. In fact, oftentimes when guys, this is if you my guys and you listen to this, there are oftentimes where some guys will get me like to try to agree with them with certain jokes, and you know what type of jokes I'm talking about, jokes about women and such and such. And I'll tell my wife like, babe, this did you know this guy said such and such? And she'll be like, oh, now I consider my wife my best friend. Now, I don't tell her every small little detail down to the very dot of an I and cross of a T. Like some things aren't necessarily um, expedient and immediate to like the detriment of my life, my relationship. But you know, things that are funny, right? Because some people have private jokes that they only tell to certain people. Like For instance, me and my brother, like we have certain life experiences, right? That my if I told the same joke to my wife, it wouldn't hit the same way. And these are not like jokes. Man, I don't joke about anything out of order, unclean or perverse, perverted, right? I just don't joke that way. I don't think it's unseemly for a man of God, no matter your position. I'm talking about a position, I'm talking about a man that says he's a man of God. But like me and my brother, I was just telling my wife about the movie Hook. And I don't know if anybody remember like Hook from 1992, like Robin Williams, Anthony Hopkins. What's the guy that played Hook? And so like this, me and my brother, this is one of our favorite movies. We're movie buffs. Like in our house, like movies was the thing, and especially like classic movies like Dick Tracy, Roger Rabbit. If you know any movie in these movies, shout out. Like yeah, I remember those movies. The first Batman, 1989. Roger Rabbit. Yeah, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Right. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The first one, right? These are classic movies, and so I was telling a joke to my wife about a scene from Hook, and she's like, "What?" Like now, mind you, I'm 2 years older than my wife, but in context, we both grew up around this in the same era in the '80s. We're '80s babies, and early '90s babies, right? And the joke just didn't hit the same way it did with my brother. Of course, there are people that you've had life experiences with, right? That you have memories that, like, if those memories came up, right, especially in a joke or something, it would hit differently with them than it would your spouse. That's understandable. But for the most part, my wife and I are best friends, and especially to be with somebody for 20 years and not consider them your best friend. If you only consider them like your wife, this is my wife, this is a person I married, and you don't consider that relationship to be higher, right? Relationship that you can have. Well, then, and if you put it below your other relationships, then it becomes okay. Well, if mom says, or dad says, or if you offend my mom, you offend my dad, you offend my brother, you offend my sister in a certain way, and trust me, like my my mom and I have had a falling out for some things she said to my wife and about my wife. My sisters and I have had a falling out before, and they know it. Things that they said to my wife and about my wife, like they know I don't play. They know, and my wife the same. Like she's had a falling out with some of her best friends. Like now, her family is a lot more supportive of has been a lot more supportive and always more supportive of me than my family to her. It's it genuinely in African American families that's kind of, I'm not going to say it should be common, but I'm only saying what it is. That's common. Um, the, I don't want to go into the dynamics of African American families, right? But oftentimes in the dynamics of African American families, the matriarch, right, of the family does not want to be replaced by another woman. That's just how it is. So, with that said, though, because my mindset is my wife's relationship is the highest relationship that I can have. Not even my daughter or my son. My relationship with my wife comes before them. Some people, their mindset is this is just my wife, the person who I married. And if she doesn't cooperate, doesn't do what I say, if she treats my kids a certain way, blah, 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 then we're done. No, that's not how I view my relationship with my wife. And that's not how Adam and Eve, or Adam, that's not how Adam summarized his relationship with Eve. And oftentimes at weddings, that verse is quoted um, by people and the minister during a marriage ceremony, but people don't take it to heart. People don't really grasp what that means, right? They just say that, well, okay, we're married now and the two become one. That's what they believe that is. But in summary, what Adam is saying, my relationship to my wife is on the high is higher than any other relationship I have except my relationship with God. That's all. God, my wife, and everybody else falls under in their priority and in their proper place, right? And so that's marriage mindset number one. Marriage mindset number two is, well, okay, let me go a little bit. Let me back up a little bit. Oftentimes, if you're, I'll say this especially toward to men, if your relationship and your mindset is my relationship is higher than my mom, then it's going to always be a conflict. Now, it's not going to, let me back, it's not always going to be a conflict, but there is a conflict of priorities. Why? Because um, you, right, your priority to your wife is based on choice. Your loyalty to your mom is not necessarily based on choice. Let me explain. So, when you were brought into this world, you had no choice. You had no choice. And when you would be born, how you be born, what sex, what gender, right? How tall, how short, um, what day, your birthday, your not even your name, right? All those things were decided for you. You had no choice. When you get married, it's now your choice to choose. Even when God created Eve out of Adam's rib, God did not choose Eve for Adam. The Bible says that God showed Adam all the animals because God said it's not good for man to be alone. Let me see if he can find a helper suitable for him. Now, God is not an idiot. God was not endorsing bestiality where a man can sleep with and have sex with animals. That's not what God was saying. God was saying that man needed a companion, and God wasn't even necessarily thinking of sexual. And I'll prove this to you in a second. God was more saying human beings, not just men, but and women, but he was showing the importance of companionship for human beings. That human beings could choose a companion for themselves and prioritize that relationship in a certain manner. Okay, so God brings all the animals to Adam. Adam names all the animals that God brings to him. Adam says to himself, I still haven't found a compatible helper, someone that's compatible to me. This shows you the brilliance of Adam, right? That he can name all the animals. Not only that, but he knows, okay, like this ain't gonna work. They cool, like dog, cat, cow, right? Like they cool, but they just don't fit me. God puts Adam to sleep. Then he creates Eve. And the Bible says, when Adam saw Eve of his own choice, Adam said, this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. And for this cause, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. So he called Adam his wife. Then Adam named her Eve, right? So he not only like said that was his wife, but he named her, right? He gave her a a label that no one else could give her. Why is this important? My wife and I, again, we've been married for 20 years, call each other bae. I rarely call her by her name when we're in the presence of each other. We call each other bae. She called me bae. This was even so prevalent. Like when my daughter was born, my daughter didn't call me dad until she was like 6 because like she used to say bae, like bae, bae. I was like, no, I'm daddy. She's like, no, bae, which was really cute. I wasn't mad at it, but I did want her at some point to call me daddy. I thought she was gonna do that, like call me bae forever. And if I asked her to recall that, she can't remember like calling me bae. Anyway, I wish I had a recording of her doing it. But um, so Adam, we call each other bae. But when I'm around other people and they ask me about my wife, I say my wife, then I say her name. I'm telling people, right? A married mindset is I'm telling people the priority that she has in my life. I've seen people, when they get around other people, they don't show other people that they're the priority that their spouse has in relationship to them. They start with, this is, people introduce me, hi, hey, I'm Stefan. This is my wife. And I say Jay, or her name is Janita. I say Jay or Janita. They say, oh, nice to meet you. I've been around some couples, and on meeting them, hey, how you doing? My name is Stefan. Oh, Kevin, nice to meet you. I'm just using the name. Kevin says, this is Charlotte. And he doesn't say like who she is to him. And then it leaves my wife and I wondering, like, okay, is that his wife? Was that his wife? That's his wife. I've also seen people who, now look, I've seen people who do this to later find out that that person wasn't their wife, to later on meet their wife who they had introduced us to but didn't tell us. Why did they do this? Well, number one, when we start the conversation of, oh, this is my wife, they knew that it would look some type of way when they finally did introduce us to their wife, but they was at the gym with somebody else. I've seen this happen. And so it just, the mindset of the person is, all right, well, this is just, my wife is not a priority. Her priority in my life is not that high. And so when your mindset is your spouse is not that much of a priority, then anybody can move up the ladder of priority depending on how they treat you. So that's how come mom is often, or dad, higher on the priority than your husband, because you look at your dad as, oh, my dad, he took care of me, of course, and rightly so. Parents deserve the honor and respect. The Bible tells us to um, honor your father and mother, for you, that your days may be long on the earth. So I believe in honoring our parents, and they deserve the credit, and they deserve the praise, and they deserve a level of respect. That of course, like, I highly respect my parents, and the level of respect I have for them is totally different than I have from now. I don't. I have a level of respect for my mom and my dad and my wife on the same level, but my mom and my dad don't get the same treatment because they're not my wife. And when it comes to level of priority, I can ask my wife for advice, right, and my dad for advice, or my mom. But guess what? My wife's advice is going to supersede their advice, because guess what? Her advice, right, and my action is going to affect her more than it would affect my parents. That's because of the priority that I have in her life, and vice versa. She may ask her brothers, her cousins, advice on what to do, but ultimately, right, what benefits me matters more than their advice or what they say to do, because the effect it has on me has a higher priority than it would have for them. That's just the married mindset. And so when you have a married mindset, I want to keep like hitting on this, because I've seen even women. Now, my wife and I, we often meet people in the gym because like that's where we spend most of our time together when we're not out on a date, and that's when we kind of meet most people. Oftentimes, like in church, you don't see it as much because it's church, right? It's like again, I'm gonna let you know, we might sound like we got a boring life, but hey, it is what it is. We go to the gym, we go to work, we go to church, and we come back home. We go now. Sometimes we go to events and things of that nature, to network and things of that nature. But most of the time at the events, we're at married couple events, and most of your, I want to say, most of your areas of gray areas of infidelity and things of that nature, and you find like creeps and things of that nature, people creeping and cheating and things of that nature goes on in gym culture. I have to say that I used to work in a gym as a personal trainer for 3 years, 3 years, so I know, and I never once stepped out on my wife. And all the women I've trained, right, they know the priority that I place that my wife is in, right? And so, like, even then, I didn't even get tried. I didn't even get stepped to that much because once you set the tone and they see the mindset that you have, once you set the tone, it's hard for somebody to kind of refute that. It's like if you plan to pick up basketball game, right? And somebody see like the tone is set and you like, okay, I'm gonna play serious, I'm gonna play hard, I'm gonna play defense. Everybody else gotta match the tone. They can't underplay because then they gonna get embarrassed, right? So same thing when it comes to like being approached. I rarely get approached by women after when I'm working somewhere that people know me, right, and that I've introduced myself because I've already set the tone. So if you come at me a certain way and you already know my mindset, you're gonna look stupid. Like you're gonna embarrass yourself. So why, like, why? And it's not for lack of looks, because I look good. Yes, I do. I would say so myself. And it's not because of lack of money. My my wife and I, we've consistently earned six figures since my son, like the last 7 years. My company did last year 5 million in revenue. So it's not for the lack of money. It may be like right limited exposure, but again, everywhere I go, my mindset is, again, this is the married mindset. If you're a woman, you work in corporate America, you work among men, right? You have to set the you have to let people know what your mindset is because you're going to get tested. And if you don't set the tone for where your mindset is, if you set the tone for where your mindset is, it's going to be hard. Now, again, men are more likely to press women, I noticed, than men are to press women. Or I'm sorry, that women are to press men. It's just natural, right? Women feel like men should approach them more. And that's just the nature of it. Unless you're a highly visible guy, a wealthy, highly visible guy like an NBA player, the president, Elon Musk, or somebody like that, or an actor, rap entertainer, right? If you're a very highly visible, wealthy person, then the stakes are different, and that comes without necessarily having looks, charisma, or anything of that nature. It's just the nature of the visibility, and the status that you have. But again, when you have a married mindset, none of that matters because you've already said in your mind, right? This is the woman I'm chasing. Adam said, for this reason, for this cause, this is the woman I'm chasing, right? Adam did not have a mother or father. Adam knew his creator, right? But he didn't ascribe to God fatherhood. That comes way later, and even in Psalms, right? David hadn't even ascribed to God fatherhood. Fatherhood doesn't come until Jesus comes on, until Jesus comes on the scene, right? We don't even people didn't relate to God as Father. They related to Him as God or Lord, which is owner and creator. They related Him to as healer, deliverer, waymaker, a king. So they just didn't relate to God that way. A shepherd, right? They related to God differently. So Adam didn't have a mother or father, but yet he said, above all relationships that a man can have or a woman can have, your spouse, when it comes to mindset, is the highest relationship. And so, if you want your relationship to last, you want a relationship to be successful, you have to place in your mindset the right priority of where your spouse stands in your mind, because everything else falls into place of that. If you have the right mindset, your spouse is going to be your friend, the person you communicate and enjoy communicating with. Your spouse is going to be the person you enjoy spending time with because of the priority. Just like you enjoy spending time with your brother, your sisters, cousins, friends, right? If your wife is on the level higher than them, your husband is on the level higher than them, you're going to create memories. You're going to create um, um, space in which you communicate with each other and you love each other and you just enjoy having fun and adventures with each other. You're going to do that because of the priority that you place that person in your mind and in your life. And so, um, again, having a married mindset starts with priority, right? All the other things fall in place: communication, intimacy, conflict management, sex, right? Finances, all that, because now the highest person, right? The person that has the highest priority is in their right place in your mind. And so all the other things just fall in place. I hope this has helped you. My wife and I will be doing, I believe this Saturday, we are going to do a live, and it's going to be called Marriage or called Relationship 911. And if your relationship is on the brink, like if your marriage is on the brink and you have questions, we'll open up for a free Q&A that you can access questions. And so we'll have a lot more coming to you and for you to help transform your relationship. Again, this is Steph J. Like, subscribe, do all those YouTube things. Help us to get this message out, help us to get this teaching out and this training. If this has helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone. Till next time, peace.